In today's podcast, we are going to be talking about 4 dating principles to attract the best relationship you've ever had. I know those are big words. And the reason behind this podcast is I told Gary, I said, we've been a little too tough lovey lately, so let's do something a little bit positive. And then Gary whips out my favorite thing in the world, which is an acronym. Gary went with B.E.S.T. And this is going to be a good one. It's a little cheesy, but I like it. It's a good one.
I love leading with positivity. And you're like, hey, let's do something fun and positive. So many of our things are positive, but I think we had just come off one where it was like, listen, we kind of hold the big brother, like, hey, like, come here. Like, we have something we got to tell you. This is, every once in a while we do a little killing of romance and stuff. So this is the antidote. This is this is all positive stuff. You're going to have the best relationship ever. That's a fact. How do we know you're going to have the best relationship? Because the best relationships start with the best dating. They go hand in hand, and we're here to help. We've got you covered.
Gary, I just love love. I just love love. Do you hate when people say that?
I do hate it, but then I'm like, okay, guilty as charged.
Yeah, like I love love too. It's so funny. We're hiring a lot here at Love Strategies, and so many applicants will say that or on their interviews. They're like, I just love love. And I'm like, I just kind of do one of these real quick. And I'm like, I know what she's saying. I love love too, but today we're all about love. We're all about romance. It's going to be beautiful. Walk us through it, Gary.
So, I think one of the funny things about dating is it's weird in the sense that the goal with dating is to not be alone anymore, right? You want somebody else. And so I think particularly for women, just finding someone is actually pretty easy. There's guys out there that are willing to date you. And, I know you're listening. Don't make that face or roll your eyes. There are guys out there that will date you. You don't always necessarily want to date them. And that's a whole other thing. But and that's fine. You not wanting to date them is fine because you want to make sure you're dating the right kinds of people, right? Getting someone's a lot easier than keeping them, but keeping the guys is a lot simpler and more productive if you're dating the right kinds of guys. And so we talk about this a lot with our clients, and we talk about this a lot at Love Strategies in general, is how you date sets up your relationship. So if you want to have the best relationship, you got to date in the best way. And so that's really what we're talking about today. I keep weirdly emphasizing the word best because BEST is an acronym. So there are 4 keys to this. The first part of BEST, the B is for blanks, as in do not fill them in. We've talked about this in a previous podcast as fibbing to yourselves. We want to know how the story ends. We want to know where this relationship is going. We want to know if he's the one. Slow down. We want the person we meet to be the person we've been looking for the whole time. If you follow along with what we suggest, you have a love vision, you have it mapped out in terms of what you're looking for. And boy, wouldn't it be super convenient if the next guy you meet checks every box and is amazing, etc. You know what? Not going to happen. Not right away. You're not going to figure that out on the first meetup, the first date, the second date. Slow it down. Don't rush it.
I've been using your don't fib yourself so much lately. It's so effective with clients. I had a client a few months ago. She went on a date with this incredible guy, like just everything she's been looking for, really excited about him. But she said, Adam, there's this problem. We went on a date and it turns out he's renting. I'm like, oh, okay. So what's the problem? Well, if he rents, he doesn't own a house, so he must not have any money. And I said, well, I get that, but let's just dive in here. What's really going on? And she said, well, he's in a really nice area of town. I know that. And he did get divorced a couple of years ago. He's clearly ready to date again. I said, well, if he got divorced, probably sold his house and now he's just renting. She said, hadn't really thought of that before. And she was ready to not go out with him again because he's a renter. And that is a perfect example. And there's many other examples of all of us doing this where we associate one thing with a certain meaning and we just start filling in the blanks. And that's a pretty macro example. There's many small examples where we hear a certain thing and then we associate everything with that thing, with that person. And the reality is we later found out, because she continued dating him, that, yeah, he is renting until the market cools off a little bit. Totally fair in this current environment. And he's going to be looking for his next dream home, which is incredible. So he's actually making like a really smart financial decision. And she's like, good. So just think about how many times we all fill in the blanks and fall victim to this idea where we hear one thing and then suddenly we just have a rush of associations with that human being. And we put them in this tight little box and we assume that they are just this thing. Fight that urge. Humans are very good at putting people in boxes. Avoid that when we're dating. Keep an open mind until we have all the information.
Yeah, and I think the other way that this applies is, and I think it's one of the biggest problems people have in dating, which is they succumb to hope, wishful thinking, and confirmation bias, where particularly for those who are anxiously attached, they love, and they are so looking forward to finding the person. They find out just the tiniest little bit of information, and then they start extrapolating from that. And it's like, if this is true, this must be true. And then this is true. And then this and this and this. And then they have these assumptions, and now they start looking for information to confirm those assumptions. And they create this whole relationship, past, present, and future, that doesn't actually exist. And because it's completely conjured up out of their imagination, it's perfect. And it seems amazing. And that is inevitably going to come back to bite you.
Just since you name dropped two pretty big terms, confirmation bias and anxious attachment, just so we don't lose the plot for everyone, would you mind quickly explaining what those two things are for everyone?
Yeah, sure. So anxious attachment is someone who is worried about being abandoned, and so they're extremely comfortable with closeness. The other way to say it is they're a little clingy, and they're very intense with how they form bonds with other people as a way of making sure that they don't lose their relationship. And then confirmation bias is you have an assumption, and you actively seek out information that agrees with you. And so I think this guy I just went out with is nice. So then forevermore, you start looking for all of the things that show that he's nice and conveniently ignore anything that doesn't confirm your original bias.
Right. Even when he yells at the waiter and is like totally rude. You're like, no, he's so nice. He's nice.
He yelled in a nice way.
He did it in a nice way.
He yelled in a very nice way. That was the nicest possible way to yell. Yeah. You've heard people. This is how people approach relationships, and it is the easiest way to completely delude yourself. That's not going to lead to the best relationship. That's going to lead to heartbreak in, let's put it, about 6 months.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, you want to take us to the next one, Gary?
E in BEST is for emotional intimacy, as in prioritize emotional intimacy before physical intimacy. Do not make the mistake of trading physical intimacy in hopes of gaining emotional intimacy. People have been trying this for years, and it never works. And I don't know, what I'm about to say, this might be a Pennsylvania thing. Adam, I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but my mom used to always say, why buy the cow when you get the milk for free?
Oh, yeah. That's
okay.
Well-known saying, for sure.
I didn't know if that was like a weird Pennsylvania kind of thing. I was waiting for, your erudite Bostonness to be like, what are you talking about? I
don't know what you're discussing. We don't have cows around here. Yeah.
But don't try, if we're physical, then that's going to make him like me more. No, nope. Because we're assuming, because you're listening to this podcast, you're looking for something real. The right guy is never going to pass you by because you weren't physical enough, because the right guy's also looking for something real. And a signal to guys that this is not real and this is not something to value is getting the physical stuff too quick.
Yeah. Well, and for women, getting intimate with a man releases a hormone or a chemical, love chemical known as oxytocin. And that actually bonds you emotionally and creates a closeness between the two of you. But for men, when men sleep with a woman, it actually releases testosterone, which actually reduces oxytocin. So men will sleep with a woman and then be like, you know what? I want to go sit on the couch or go hang out with my guy friends for the rest of the night. It can have an alternate, it can have a reverse effect. Now, the way that it doesn't do that is if a man is emotionally connected to you. If he sees you as a friend, if he's already been bonded to you, he's starting to feel in love with you. He's starting to understand you as a human being. But if it happens too soon, before there's any emotional intimacy, then the moment he sleeps with you, suddenly there's going to be this rush of testosterone, and he's actually going to start to pull away more than want to get closer. And this is a big divide between men and women, as far as men don't understand why women get closer right after sex as much, and women don't seem to understand why men can pull away after sex. So I think this is a really important piece of all of this, is just realizing that we need to create that connection first, that friendship between the two of you before it gets physical. Because if it gets physical too soon and you don't know the person, all you're doing is sleeping with a stranger. And who wants to sleep with a stranger?
Right. And, you're looking for a long-term, committed, fulfilling relationship. Those kind of relationships are built on emotional intimacy. Get to know them. And really make sure you're getting to know them. And I say it that way because so often people will say, I'll ask, how do you know them that well? Well, we talked for 6 hours. Okay, but about what? Because how much you talk isn't the same as what you're talking about. I have clients say, well, we text every day, nonstop every day. That counts for 0. That just doesn't count. That's not building emotional intimacy. It's almost impossible to build emotional intimacy over text. And so just be careful about what you're counting, and it's got to be real emotional intimacy. You have to have emotional intimacy, you have to be vulnerable. You have to open up, share. He has to reciprocate and be willing to be emotionally vulnerable, to open up and to share. Can you get hurt? Yes. And that's a good sign because it shows you're having emotional intimacy. If you're not, it's not potentially hurtful in terms of what you're sharing, you're not actually being emotionally intimate. That's just stuff you could share with anybody. And that's not necessarily going to do it. And so you have to open up and be a little vulnerable.
Yeah. And I would, a lot of people will kid themselves and be like, oh, we'll just, I'm not really necessarily looking for anything right now. So I'll just sleep with this guy and I'll just have him kind of there and it'll be good. We'll have great sex and you name it, yada, yada, yada. And then the emotional intimacy will develop. It will come, whether it's through him or it's with you. But the majority of women that we've worked with, and we've worked with literally tens of thousands of them, will fall into this trap. Then you're not only sleeping with him for a long period of time, but also now you're emotionally connected with him. So the risk of doing that is actually is much higher. I'd rather be emotionally connected with a person with the risk of getting hurt, but at least you're not physical yet with a person, so that you can back away more easily. But if you're sleeping with him for like 2 months and then you fall in love with him, that is a recipe for disaster. And the worst part of all of that is what can happen in those situations is you sleep with a guy for 2 months, then you start to fall for him, and then you tell him that you're falling for him, and he's like, whoa, that's not the deal here. That's not how we started things. No. We said we were just keeping this thing casual. And that is the ultimate pain. So again, the easiest ways, start with emotional intimacy first before it gets too physical.
I'm so glad you said that, because that's what I was dying to. That is such an important lesson in this. You start off, oh, it's just sex, it's casual, it's just physical, it's just casual, whatever. You know who's really into those rules? Him. He loves those rules. You then catch feelings, as the kids say, or you develop emotional intimacy. You've now changed the rules of the game in a way he's not going to be thrilled about. And if you keep pressing that, he's going to be like, done, I'm out. I'm going to go play this same game with somebody else who sticks by the rules. And it's going to cause a lot of hurt, a lot of emotional turmoil. And we're really trying to protect you from a lot of that.
Well, you know what actually will sometimes happen that's even worse is he'll then date someone else who builds emotional intimacy with him first before they sleep together. And then he marries that person.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh my God, I was casually hooking up with this guy for a year. And I tried to turn this into something. And then the next woman he meets, he's married to in like 3 months.
Yeah.
And it's all just from how it started. It's like the foundation of the beginning of the relationship. It's just how it started.
And importantly, super importantly in that scenario, what happens almost every time, the woman then asks herself, what's wrong with me?
Right.
Which is heartbreaking. And it pains me to hear it. But you can kind of hear in our explanation, the answer is there's nothing wrong with you.
Right.
It's just what are you putting for? It's the strategy that you're using. And if you put the physical stuff first, you're disqualifying yourself in a way from the thing that you really want. And so it's really just about being strategic and disciplined about maintaining this idea that emotional intimacy first, and that will lead to physical intimacy because that's going to get you where you want to go.
Yeah. So true. All right. Take us to the next one, Gary.
All right. The S in B.E.S.T is secure attachment.
I don't know.
Don't acronym shame me. You have so many acronyms. You do not get to acronym shame me.
I'm acro shaming you, bro. I'm acro shaming you.
No, not okay. I refuse. Not a boundary established. Back on. So
I can still make fun of you though.
Secure attachment, as you probably know, but this is someone who's comfortable with closeness. They're not worried about the person leaving them. They operate in relationships from a sense of basic trust. Secure attachment is the gold standard for you and for him. But for you, our listener, you accept no substitutes. The guy you date, I know you're like, just date. No, date. You only date secure guys.
Yeah.
Now, some people will say, oh, no, I know I want a secure guy for a relationship, but for dating, do I really? No. You only date secure guys because those insecure guys, you can date them. Then you're going to start building emotional intimacy. You're going to start getting connected. Only date secure guys. It's really that important. Okay.
Gary, before we move forward, because that's a strong statement, what would you say back to the women who are listening saying, I have an anxious attachment style or I have an avoidant attachment style? Should men not date me then?
No, because I think it's important to be somebody who recognizes your attachment and knows what it is and knows what you need to work on. So this is one of those times where trajectory matters. And I would presume that if you're listening to this podcast, you're someone who cares about personal development, self-improvement, getting better at relationship things. So you probably have a pretty good sense of what your attachment is and you're working on it. I can't guarantee that that's happening for him. And I would actually venture to guess it's not. That he's just kind of free going through life. Just, I don't know. He's avoidant and doesn't know it. He's anxious and doesn't know it. He doesn't necessarily care to learn, perhaps. Right. So I can't vouch for him. But so, if you're not secure and you're worried about this, in some ways, good. So focus on establishing your security. And one of the best ways to establish your own security is to date people who are secure and learn to trust them.
Amen. That's exactly what I was thinking, but I just wanted to throw that at you because I want to make sure that was clear.
Yeah. No, I love talking about like these little attachment things, and I just have to stop myself from going on and on and on. I did a special seminar for our clients last week. It was supposed to be 25 minutes and I went for a solid 50, and they loved it and they were super, but it's so easy to talk about this stuff. So I will stop now.
Yeah. We got to put on like your nerd glasses when attachment styles come. Like we have to have a special set of glasses. You don't even wear glasses, do you?
Contacts.
Yeah.
Oh, I've been rocking contacts since 10th grade.
Got it. Yeah. We need to like lean into the academic, get you all like super, like the circular glasses and the, I don't know, what else could we do for
maybe more? Can we go more Clark Kent? Maybe a little.
That's fair.
Is that possible? Yeah. So, with all this talk about attachment, okay, I want to do something fun. Can we do something fun?
Let's do it.
I want to do like a little activity.
Let's have the best activity.
No, stop. You just did it again. Yeah. Shaming me. Okay. I'm gonna call this, what would a secure person do? And so you always want to ask yourself this question. What would a secure person do? So a guy doesn't text. That's the scenario. So before we get to what a secure person would do, Adam, I'm going to ask you first, what would a guy doesn't text? What would an anxious person do?
Freak out, worry, text him a million times, hoping that he will respond and just go into total like freak out mode.
Right. Hey, what's up? Hey, hi. Having a good day? Hey, hey. Terrible. Okay. So now what would an avoidant person do in that exact guy doesn't text, avoidant person?
I tried to disappear. This is what an avoidant person would do.
That's good. So for those of you listening and can't see, Adam just We couldn't see him anymore. He disappeared.
He disappeared.
Yeah,
It's
avoiding,
over.
yeah,
Screw him. He doesn't deserve me. Bye bye. All that stuff. I'm out. I don't deserve this. Bye.
yeah, completely in sync. Bye, bye, bye. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So now, same scenario. A guy doesn't. What would a secure person do?
They're busy. They don't text me. It's fine. That means, whatever. Maybe we're not compatible, and that's pretty good to know sooner versus later. I don't know.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's just such a non-factor. And so this is the kind of thing to ask yourself in this filter, what would a secure person do in this situation? So this will help you be more secure, and it'll help you identify guys who are more secure. If they're reacting to most situations with, okay, that's fine. They're not overly jealous, any of that kind of stuff. And so the other thing to do with identifying secure guys is don't tolerate the emotionally distant, mixed signal kind of guy. You want to focus on traits in men. You want to find a secure guy? Find guys who are consistent, who are reliable, who are emotionally regulated. Like they're not too many highs, not too many lows. They're accepting of their own flaws. They're calm. They exude warmth. They make you feel seen, heard, and understood. When you're in their presence, you feel calm. You feel safe. Right. That's how you should feel around a secure person. And these are good feelings for long term. You want the best relationship, that's the kind of guy you're looking for.
Yeah. I mean, optimize for security and trust. That's first. And I think what you just said is really important, where if someone is inconsistent, it's impossible to trust that person. How can you trust something that is inconsistent? Like if I were to jump out of an airplane with a parachute and they're like, yeah, we packed the bags and we're not really very consistent with that. Am I going to trust that parachute is going to open? Am I going to do that? I don't think so. I mean, maybe not the best of all examples, but you get the point. Consistency is the key over a long period of time. And if someone is consistent over a long period of time, that's where you can trust them. So,
yeah. And I think when you're looking for these secure guys, don't misread boring and dull as, sometimes I should say that a different way. Don't misread stability and predictability as boring and dull.
Right.
Right? We want predictable. We want, when guys say they're going to show up, we want them to show up. When guys say they're going to do something, we want them to do that thing. When guys say they are a certain way, we want them to actually be that way. And I know that takes out some of the mystery, but if you've had a past with a bunch of unhealthy, toxic relationships, you've been training yourself in a way to believe that drama is a sign of chemistry. It's a sign of excitement. And the truth is that's not what chemistry is about. And you want to make sure that you're not accidentally optimizing for drama and chemistry when you really should be looking for stability and security.
Gary, what's so hot is when you have sex with a partner right after you get in a blowout fight where you're throwing plates against the wall and he's going nuts and you're going nuts and it's so dramatic and you're just screaming at each other. You're throwing his clothing out the window because you say, you're leaving, get out of my life. Then he says, baby, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And then you say, I'm sorry too. Oh my God. Then you have the best sex in the world. But let me tell you, not a good relationship that you want to have. That is not the husband you want to have. That is not the future you want to have. It's not the father to your children that you want to have. Drama and emotional volatility can be hot, but security, whereas security can be quite boring and dull at times, certainly compared to that. If you're used to that in relationships, it's going to feel really boring, but lean in. It still can be exciting, just in a healthy way. It really can be.
And I think what happens too is if you've been secure for a long enough period of time, like what you just described sounds like a horror show to me.
Yeah.
Sounds terrible. I mean, I get it, but and that's what you have to realize is what your attachment is, where you're coming from, and you want to constantly be moving towards more security because it's something that we know from all of the research. Secure is the good one. It's the good one for everything. And the more secure you are, generally, the better your outcomes are going to be. So it really is that important.
So Gary, have you never thrown a plate against the wall?
Never.
I know.
Never.
You
Never.
don't strike me as that type.
No.
Me neither, by the way. Just so everyone knows, that's not my type. I'm not that volatile, actually, emotionally.
But but this is the interesting thing is there are definitely people listening who are thinking, no, I've seen that before.
Yeah.
And it's something that one of the things that when people find out I study relationships, and I'm sure the same thing happens to you, they share a bunch of relationship things. And so I actually had a friend of mine years ago say, just in casual conversation, like, oh yeah, my wife's a thrower. I'm like, a what now? What's that? A thrower? He goes, oh yeah. Like we get in a fight, she throws stuff at me.
Oh.
And he said it in the most matter-of-fact, casual kind of way. And he had a name for it. He goes, Colleen, your wife, she doesn't throw things at you? I'm like, never. Never even crossed her mind, I could pretty much assure you. He goes, oh, that's cool. No, she's a thrower. My mom was a thrower. And it's like, wow, this is not a thing. And so it just, sometimes we have to realize our experience is more limited than we realize. And sometimes in some pretty impactful ways. Something as big as this, like throwing stuff, like that's actually not normal. And so it just kind of goes to show.
And what's sad about that particular guy is that I'm sure he's dated some women who are secure and aren't throwers and who show up and have a challenge in the relationship and just want to speak openly about it. And he's probably like, this is uncomfortable. This is weird.
Right.
This is weird. Why are you not throwing things?
They don't care.
I don't like this.
Yeah.
I'm not used to this.
Yeah.
What's that?
They don't care.
Yeah.
She doesn't care enough to get mad and throw things.
Right.
Right. And so, we can misinterpret a lot of different things. So you still want to have the best relationship. We still have one more to go. We have the T in BEST. T is for, you want to have your best relationship. You want to get there as soon as possible, but T is for take your time. Take your time. Dating is one of those things everybody wants to stop doing. Mm-hmm. It's a behavior you engage in that you actually want to stop doing because you never want to actually have to open an app again. You never want to have to go on an uncomfortable first. You don't want to have to do a bunch of those things. And so if you try to rush it, the faster you try to go, the longer it's going to take. 100% true. If you try to skip steps, you try to just jump right to, like, I'm just going to go find somebody, it's not going to work out and it's going to take you longer. Right? And you're going to have to keep reliving those mistakes if you keep trying to rush it. And so you have to ask yourself, fundamentally, what's more important? Do you want to go fast or do you want to go far? Because quick doesn't lead to quality and fast doesn't lead to fulfillment. You have to take your time.
It's a tough pill to swallow, and I think something we've intentionally done with our clients, and you and I have discussed this a lot, is what do they do the first 4 weeks of working with us? Because it's so important to have momentum. And we go back and forth. We're like, we just want to get them dating as soon as possible. We want to get them meeting guys. We want to get them online dating so that within the first couple of days, they're just talking to all these guys and they feel good. But we have intentionally set up this program where it's not until 3 weeks in where it's even focused on meeting guys. And although it feels slow to some clients where they're just like, oh my God, I just joined a dating coaching program. I want to just get out there and start meeting men and all this stuff. We're like, hold on. Let's start with you first. Then let's figure out what it is that you want. Learn about some really key information as to what to look for, including attachment styles. We talked about that a lot today. And then when we're prepared, then we hit it with a vengeance, but not until then. And it's like one of these things that it's kind of like a spring that you load. They're learning all this information, they learn all this information. And then once they get to week 3, then it's like, bam, hit the ground running, start talking to all these guys with a new energy and new vengeance. That's where I want you to move fast. But up until that point, focus on yourself, creating the best possible product that you're going to then market when you get out there, right? You are the product, and then you're going to go market it. And if you do that, then you hit the ground running, start talking to guys. But then the crazy thing is, once you meet a guy you really like, you got to slow it down again. That's the general pace. That's how this whole thing works. Slow it down again. Let's not rush right into a relationship. But if you follow that general process and that theme, that is what really sets you up for success. You move slow at the beginning, focus on yourself, then hit it with a vengeance, meeting lots of people as fast as you can, as many guys, get out there. And then when you meet a guy you really like, slow it down again. That's the algorithm for success that we found over the years.
It's so funny that we're talking about this because literally last night I was holding one of our mastermind sessions, and one of our clients, she's coming to the end of her subscription, and she raises her hand. She's like, I don't really have a question. There's something I'm coming to the end. She found her guy, and she's like, there's just something I really want to share. She's like, I want to share two things. And the two things she shared were exactly the two things you just mentioned, which is, hey, you're going to want to go fast. I know I wanted to go fast, and I tried to skip steps, and I was skipping steps and I wasn't getting anywhere. It wasn't until I actually stopped, paused, went back, and really leaned into the beginning material that I felt better about my amazing life. And then I felt ready to find the man to share that life with. And then once I did that, the second thing was slow it down. Pace. And it gives me goosebumps because it's like the happiest moment of like the things that we do is like, because we say this stuff all the time, but it's like when the client, she's like, there's two things I have to share. And it just happened to be those exact two things. I was like, oh, this is it. This is why we do this. And she's like, I could not be happier. And I would not have found this man doing it the way I was doing it before. And I'm like, yes.
I love that. I love that story. I didn't know about that. Thank you for sharing that with me. It's so empowering when clients hear from other clients. Mm-hmm. That's the best. That's the best. When it comes from us, it has weight. When it comes from someone else, is like, no, actually do it. That's the key. So thank you, Gary. That was a lot of fun. And anything else you want to end with here?
Yeah, I think, because we're talking about having the best relationship, and generally a lot of people listen to this podcast to learn about dating. I just really do want to emphasize this idea that dating is the start of your relationship. You don't think it necessarily starts with, but this is the start of your relationship. How you date is about building habits now that's going to set up your relationship in the future, because you're not just trying to find somebody. You're trying to also, while you're dating, teach the other person how you need to be loved, because that process, those habits are going to just kind of roll over into your relationship. So this is not like, I'll just date one way and then I'll be serious about the relationship. That's not the way to make it work. It's get serious now, date with intention, date strategically, because that lays the foundation for the fulfilling relationship you really want to find.
Amen. Thanks, Gary. That's great.
Thanks, Adam.